Hi, everyone. Welcome back to my spiritual journey. I'm your host, Dave Thomas Rocker. I haven't done this in a while. I think it's been about 3 months. But anyway, today I'm going to talk about a very important topic, and that's the topic of good and evil. And here's kind of an image I think most of us have of good and evil. You can think of it as a battle, between an angel and a devil, as shown here. And of course, in the book of Revelations in the New Testament, they talk about I guess the Armageddon or the apocalypse. I guess the Armageddon is supposed to be final battle between the forces of good and evil before the apocalypse, the end of the world. And I guess the outcome determines whether we go to heaven or hell. I don't believe that because I'm not a Christian. And like I mentioned in a previous video, I really don't like mainstream religion, especially the Bible. I'm not going to get into that anymore. But I do believe in good and evil. I think it's pretty clear that they exist in our society. And this book here, The Road Less Traveled, I just want to say a little bit about this book. I read this maybe 20 years ago. It's by a very famous psychiatrist named Dr. Scott Peck, who died, I think, maybe about, I don't know, 30 or 40 years ago. But I read this book shortly after, about 20 years ago, and I'd say this book was one of the most influential books I've ever read in my life. I mean, he does define evil in this book, and this is all psychology in this book. It's kind of interesting because Dr. Scott Peck, he kind of wavers on his feelings about religion. He doesn't like mainstream Christianity either. At least he didn't. He even described some patients he had where, their Catholic upbringing basically destroyed their lives. So he wasn't a fan of mainstream religion, but he was spiritual. I think he was very highly spiritual. And it's a little bit of a weird book because first near the beginning of the book he talked about how much mainstream religion's kind of been harmful for humanity, but then by the end he's still entertaining a lot of some basic ideas from Christianity. So I don't know exactly where he stood. But I guess I just want to say what he said about evil. He actually comes up with a definition of evil in this book. I think it's about a one-page definition. It's about a page of this book where he defines evil. I don't remember exactly what he says, but he says that basically evil people, they're like it's active. He defines evil as active defense of laziness, which I think is a really interesting definition. And it kind of makes sense to me in a way. I mean, why is it bad to be lazy? Well, it's bad to be lazy. I mean, sloth is considered one of the seven deadly sins. But aside from that, why is it bad to be lazy? Well, I'll get to more of that later. But the main reason is because of second law of thermodynamics. We know from the second law of thermodynamics, which I'll also get to later, that the universe is running down. Disorder increases in the universe, and the only way to combat that is through hard work. If you're lazy, you're just kind of letting things run down. You're letting the world run down. And if you're evil, I guess the way Dr. Peck defines evil is those who actively defend laziness. I mean, they want to destroy things. See, entropy has a tendency to destroy order. It destroys whatever structures there are in the universe, including us, because we're very organized structures. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, what do evil people do? Like, what did Hitler do? I mean, Hitler, he basically almost destroyed the world. The only reason he didn't was because the Allied forces fought him and just, defeated him. But, he's probably one of the most evil people that ever lived. And you could see all the destruction that went on in Nazi Germany, the book burning, the attempted genocide on the, his attempt to conquer the world. And it was a very destructive thing. And, so evil is destructive. And in that sense, I think it does make sense that it's active defensive laziness. He says a little bit more about evil. He says that evil people don't really know what they're doing. That's kind of what Jesus said, forgive them for they know not what they do. And I think it's true. I don't think evil people would be evil if they realize the full magnitude of the consequences of what they're doing by being evil. I think that's where it comes from. I think, evil people, they kind of know they're evil. They know to some extent they're evil and they don't care. That's what makes them evil. I don't believe that anybody with good intentions, they do say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but I don't think it's possible to be unintentionally cruel and evil. I think evil requires evil intent. So evil people, they know they're doing bad and they don't care. That's part of the problem, but it's much, much deeper than that. They know they're evil, but they don't know the full extent of how destructive they are. I think that's the problem. So that's kind of how Dr. Peck defines evil. I don't think he defines good. I guess you could say good's the opposite of evil. I have my own theories about good and evil. I just thought I'd mention Dr. Peck first, but uh, my views of evil, good and evil involve evolution. Actually, I have two sort of pseudoscientific theories about good and evil. I am very well trained in science, and I do believe in Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection. So I hope I haven't turned away any Christians here or any, traditionally religious people who believe in creation, that God created man in his own image, or that God created the universe in 6 days, because I don't believe that. But I do believe in evolution. I do believe in Darwin's theory, and I mean, I just want to say one more thing about it. It's well borne out by tons and tons of scientific evidence, no matter what anybody says about it. Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection is known science. I think it's just about as obvious as Galileo's law of falling bodies. If you drop something, it's going to fall. To me, it's just as obvious that evolution is true. I mean, all you had to do was go to the Galapagos Islands and observe the finches there on the different islands and notice that their beaks were all sort of tailor made for the different islands. I guess you could still argue that God planted that, but why would he go through all that trouble, right? And what about Australia? Australia is the only place in the world that has marsupials. I mean, I don't know. It's just so obvious to me that evolution is true. But that's as much as I'm gonna preach about why I believe in evolution. But let's just put that aside. Let's assume that we did evolve from apes, and this is a classical picture you see. I mean, this is kind of the almost like the icon of evolution. But I think it's misleading. I mean, this is the evolution of man, right? On the left, you've got, I guess, some early hominids that look like monkeys, basically. Maybe that was about 5 million years ago, and then you go through more and more development. We started walking more and more upright. We started using tools until we had Homo sapiens that are basically our current species on the right. That's a picture you see a lot. But I still think it's misleading. Why is it misleading? Because it kind of makes evolution look like a line, like a chain. It's not a chain, it's a tree. I think this is a big misconception about evolution. It's a tree. There's all these branches of the tree of evolution. So it's not just humanity that's at the end of the tree of evolution. It's all the other animals and plants that exist today. They're all, kind of, you can think of them as the leaves of the other branches. So you got fish, you got birds, you got other mammals, you got, all the animals you see around you, the green alligators, the geese, all that, except no unicorns, right? But that's evolution in a nutshell, I think. And but how does evolution pertain to good and evil? Well, I think good. Another way I could define evolution. I think I've even seen this from other people. Good is that what proceeds in the direction of evolution, and evil is that which opposes it. I think this is a pretty nice definition. So, if you believe that, then what you kind of believe is that all the animal and plant species that exist today, not just us, but all the animals and plant species that now exist, they were the ones that survived, right? And I think the reason they survived was because they were more fit for the environment, and in some sense that kind of means that we're better than our ancestors were. We're more good because we're more evolved. I kind of like that definition. We're obviously a lot more involved than the dinosaurs. I mean, the dinosaurs couldn't survive the asteroid that killed them off, but the mammals did. So somehow, to me, that kind of proves that in some sense mammals were more evolved than dinosaurs, and I'm glad I'm not a dinosaur. And so that's just one way you can think about evolution, but it's not just by. And here's another picture. I like this picture too. This is kind of the paleontology of life on Earth. And the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, no matter what religious people tell you. It's not 6,000 years old, it's 4.5 billion. And we've gone through many, many different life forms throughout the Earth's history. I mean, I guess life on Earth started about maybe 3.8 billion years ago, but for most of that time, it was single-celled life. It was just, you know, bacteria basically, microorganisms. It wasn't until the Cambrian explosion about 600 million years ago. That's when we first started getting multicellular life. So that was a bigger development. I think this is another thing that most people don't realize. I think that life is special, obviously, but the existence of life, like single cell life, I don't think that's really that big a miracle. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that there's single cell life on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. That's in our own solar system. It has water, and I'm pretty sure it has single cell life. I don't know why, but nobody's tried to look for it yet. But most scientists right now suspect that Europa may have single-celled organisms. So I don't think single-celled organisms are really all that special. Like I said, I bet you just about every star system has single-celled organisms, but multicellular. That was a much, much, much bigger leap, and we don't even know how multicell life got started. I've heard some pretty weird theories about it. I heard like a cell eating another cell, and I think it was a much harder thing to get multicell life. So maybe multicellular life, and that would include intelligent life, because I don't think you could have single-celled intelligent life. But intelligent life may be really, really rare. It might be a lot rarer than we used to think it is, and maybe that's why we haven't discovered it yet outside of Earth. I don't know. But that's the Fermi paradox. That's one possible explanation of Fermi paradox, that maybe multicellular life is very rare. I don't think we're alone in the universe, and the universe is really, really huge. So, no matter how unlikely it was that we got here, we multicellular organisms, got here on Earth, I'm sure it's happened somewhere else in the universe too. Probably a lot of places, probably in our Milky Way galaxy as well. But anyway, yeah. So that's evolution, and in my mind, there's actually three phases of evolution. I mean, I just talked about biological evolution. Biological evolution is what Darwin studied. It's evolution through the genes, through mating, through the genes, and through the environmental changes, survival of the fittest, basically. And that's purely biological. But then there's other forms of evolution too, technological. I mean, I think the nice thing about humanity, I think every other animal on Earth, the only kind of evolution they've ever experienced was biological evolution. But humanity is special in the sense that I think we actually have gone through three phases of evolution. The second one, I think, is either social or technological evolution. I prefer to think of it as technological evolution. I mean, I think our brains are the driving force for technological evolution. It was our genes that were responsible for our biological evolution. But once we became smart, once the Homo sapiens came, or even before Homo sapiens, the first hominids that used tools, the first tools were kind of the first human invention. And I think once we started using tools, we were able to alter our environment. And we did that with our brains. We figured out how to make tools and how to make better tools, how to improve on them. We discovered fire. We discovered things that ultimately led to development of our society, human society. So I call that technological evolution. The amazing thing about it, I mean, you have to think about time scales too. Because like biological evolution is very, very slow. I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of years now. I mean, like I said, life on Earth started 3.8 billion years ago with the first single cell life. It took another over 3.2 billion years to get multicellular life, and people don't even know how that came about, but it did. And then things got faster and faster. I mean, once you had multicellular organisms, another thing that helped was sex, sexual reproduction. I think that happened about 2 billion years ago. That was kind of midway through the single cell life. There were single cell organisms that eventually developed, DNA, which involves male and female genes, the chromosomes. And I think that helped with diversity. Once you had sexual reproduction, you could choose your mates could choose you, and the preferable traits kind of won out more quickly than they did with single cell life. So that was a big development. But multicellular. I mean, every new development in evolution, like first the first single cell life, and then the first sexual reproduction, and then the first multicellular life. Every one of those developments kind of sped up biological evolution. It started happening faster and faster, but biological evolution it's still been very, very slow. I mean, just think about the multicellular life. Like I said, the Cambrian explosion, 600 million years ago. We had all these other life forms that developed for the next 600 million years. Dinosaurs, reptiles, birds, mammals, all that. But each of those developments took millions of years, so it was pretty slow until man made tools. I mean, that was only 2 million years ago now. That's like 1/3000th of the time that life on, that multicellular life has been on Earth. I guess even a smaller fraction if you consider all life on Earth. But yeah, from 2 million years ago is when man started making the first tools, and that was our first kind of technological evolution. And technology has just skyrocketed. I mean, to me, it's kind of mind-boggling. We had the first tools maybe 2 million years ago. We had the first, that was the beginning of I guess caveman. And then there were kind of three phases of the Stone Age. I don't even remember what they're called, but eventually, then I think the next big thing happened maybe 10,000 years ago when we developed agriculture. We learned how to grow our own food instead of just hunting and gathering. That's kind of when we weren't just living along with nature. We were forming our own environment. First it was farms, then it was cities, and then we developed all this other stuff. I mean, in a way, it's kind of interesting. I think that according to the Bible, the Earth started about 6,000 years ago, because a lot of things happened around 6,000 years ago. I mean, that's about the time when writing first came about. And before writing, think about it. I mean, we don't really know much about what we were doing before we were writing because people were just talking to each other. They weren't even talking that long. I don't know when speech started, maybe 20 or 30,000 years ago. So once we started speaking to each other, ideas started getting conveyed a lot quicker. But we couldn't write them down until we invented writing, and that was about maybe 5 or 6,000 years ago. And we really don't know much about what we were doing before writing because we don't have records of it. Uh, but ever since we've had writing, which is I guess about the time that, according to the Bible, they say the earth started. That's when they started writing things like the Bible. So it kind of makes sense. But a lot of things happened. I mean, that's when we had all the ancient civilizations. I guess they call them the cradle of civilizations, the ones along the river valleys, like the Nile and the Tigris, Euphrates, and the Yangtze and whatever. There were like four or five kind of river valleys where civilization got studied, started in, yeah, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Um, you know, it hadn't happened in the New World yet because we had to go there first. I think same with Australia. But that's kind of where civilization got started. And, it was all this technology that I think was really the biggest driving force behind most of human civilization. And, just to show you how fast this accelerating. I mean, these are different. I guess this is kind of a spoof of, the usual picture you see of human evolution. You got little technologies on the left. You got I guess a hominid with a fire, and then you got a guy with a wheel, and then you got a guy with, I don't even know what the third picture is, probably a bow and arrow or something. And you got a little quick cart with a steam, a smokestack on top. That was the Industrial Revolution. And we had airplanes, and finally we have PCs. So those are just some kind of technologies we've invented. But what's amazing to me about technology. Remember, I was telling you about this, kind of exponential speed up in evolution. Well, that's I mean, technology to me it's amazing how much technology we've acquired in a very, very short time. I mean, there's a very famous, uh, you know, uh, sociologist and inventor named Ray Kurzweil. He wrote a book called The Singularity is Near, maybe 20 years ago. I don't really agree with him, but he thinks that we're approaching a technological singularity, and we're pretty close to it, according to him. Like, I think sometime this century, we're going to get to the point where we're going to pass the Turing test with computers, which means computers are going to be more, smarter than us. And then they're going to start, being in charge of all the, technological process. We'll be sort of like redundant units or something. I don't want to live in such a world. I hope it doesn't happen like that. But it's pretty amazing. I mean, especially computer technology. I think computers are really where technology has really skyrocketed. I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, we started with big mainframes in the 50s, and then, by the mid 70s, we had the first PCs, and then we got the internet, and then we got cell phones, and who knows what we're going to get next. So, um, quantum computers are around the horizon. So yeah, it's computer technology is kind of the thing that's really taking off. But there's another form of evolution. I've only mentioned two so far. So I mentioned biological evolution, Alan Darwin, and then I mentioned technological evolution, which I think you could also say is part of social evolution. But then I think there's a third kind of evolution, and that one is spiritual evolution. That's kind of evolution of morality and ethics. And it's not just technologically that we've advanced. I mean, and the thing about technology, and I think evolution in general, it does involve setbacks. Like think about good and evil again. So remember, I was said that good is that which proceeds in the direction of evolution, and evil is what proceeds in the opposite direction. Well, obviously, we still have evil on the world because we have gone back. Yeah, this slide I wanted to show you. This is kind of the technological paradox in a way, or human. I think the name of the slide was human progress paradox. And it's interesting because there's kind of two pictures on here. If you look at the top picture, this is kind of how we've progressed. We progressed from the hominids on the left. We progressed. Gradually developed higher and higher, spirituality, more and more theoretical knowledge, deeper knowledge about how the universe works, E equals MC squared. One of the most famous equations ever discovered, and not even discovered that long ago. 1905. Um, this is all good stuff on top, but on the bottom, look, this is kind of the evolution of weapons technology. You know, I mean, it's great that we know equals MC squared, and we have all this great knowledge and great, good technology, but we've also got a lot of bad technology. I mean, the atomic bomb was a pretty, dramatic demonstration of that. We now have enough power, and we have for some time to destroy the planet. And it's pretty scary. And we have to choose between good and evil. I mean, they even say that in the Bible. I mean, that's what free will is all about, I guess. The choice between good and evil. So we've got good technology and evil technology, and I mean, I don't think technology in and of itself is really good or evil. I think it's us. I think it's our free will. It's the decisions we make how to use science and technology for better or for worse. If you're motivated by good, you use it in such a way that helps humanity, helps society. If you're evil, use it in a way that's destructive. And unfortunately, we still have good and evil. So we still have this free will, I guess. I mean, We're probably always going to have that. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of evil, but I think the world is improving. But anyway, yeah, I think I skipped a few slides here. Yeah, so I mentioned body, mind, and spirit, and this slide, I really like this slide. There's a lot of variations of this slide. It just kind of shows that we need all of them, and I think they kind of intersect into, like who we really are. We all have body, mind, and spirit, and they all kind of have to work together and balance. I mean, I think this picture mostly is about balance, balancing all the all the knowledge we have, all the um, the information from our body, mind, and spirit, and how it all comes together. And yeah. Can I say anything more about good and evil? Well, there's one thing that I've been kind of mystified by. Why? I don't think I. Oh, yeah, I didn't show all the slides. Entropy. Yeah, that's another thing I want to talk about. I mentioned entropy earlier, and this seems like a paradox because we know entropy. For those you don't know, entropy is a scientific measure of how disordered a system is. So, and then there's something called the second law of thermodynamics. This was discovered in the mid 19th century. It was discovered because people were interested in heat engines. They wanted to know how much useful energy you should get out of a heat engine. And they came up with entropy as a way of explaining that. But I think entropy has a much, much deeper meaning than just how it's used in, making good heat engines. I mean, entropy, like I said, is disorder, and this is a physical law. This is known as the second law of thermodynamics, and it's a very easy law to write down. S is entropy. And all this equation is saying is that for any system in the universe, it's entropy. I mean, entropy of any closed system. It can't be, it can't have influence from another system, but a closed system, such as probably our universe, um, its entropy can never decrease. And this is a statistical law. I mean, yeah, there are statistical fluctuations, and maybe you could deviate it tiny a little bit for a very short amount of time. But basically, this law is a known physical law. You can trace its origins to the Big Bang. The Big Bang is kind of the reason we have this law. And it's a weird law. It's a mysterious law because it's the only known law of physics that gives a preference to the direction of time. All other known physical laws, time is symmetric. The laws that look the same if you reverse the direction of time. But I think we all know that, things don't make sense if you reverse time. I mean, I'm sure you guys have all seen movies played backwards where somebody jumps out of a swimming pool or cracked pot comes back together. We never see that happening because of this law. Things get more and more disordered, and if we want to make them more ordered, we have to do work. And that's why I think this is kind of my second definition of good and evil. I think I already mentioned this one. Good is that which opposes this law. And what's weird to me about evolution, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but what's weird to me about evolution, and I don't completely understand it yet, but what's weird is it seems to violate this law. I mean, if you look at evolution, if you look at evolution of life, life has become more and more complex, more and more structured, throughout our history. That seems to violate the second law of thermodynamics. It doesn't, because the Earth is not a closed system. We're getting energy from the sun. But somehow the sun is driving evolution on Earth. I don't even know exactly how that happens, but it does. I haven't quite figured that out yet. I think it's still kind of a mystery. But like I said, there's three phases of evolution: biological, technological, and social. So yeah, if you think about Darwin's theory, I guess you could say the environment, changes in the environment are driving biological evolution because of survival of the fittest. The animals and plant species that are more fit, more well adapted to changes in the environment are those that win out, those that survive. The other ones perish, and the ones. I mean, actually, this does kind of make sense now. That I think about it, I did come up recently with a resolution of this paradox of why life is getting more and more ordered. Which seems to violate this law. It really doesn't violate this law. Another way you can see that, you're not thinking about the waste products. I mean, when you're looking at just the living things on Earth, you're only looking at the living ones. What about all the ones that died? What about all the extinct species? What about all the decay products of all the dead species throughout our whole history. I mean, what happened to them? Well, fossils, right? I mean, fossils, I guess you can think of those as the waste products of evolution. They're the remains of all the dead species, all extinct species, all the ones that didn't make it. And that's kind of interesting because, they're useful. I mean, we use fossil fuels, right? And it's a little ironic, I think, because fossil fuels are part of what's been driving our society, Uh, the fact that that we can get energy from fossil fuels is due to the fact that they stored a lot of energy. A lot of the energy got stored in these fossils that we're now burning. And by the way, this is another. I mean, so yeah. If you think of extinct species as the waste product of biological evolution, as waste products of I don't know about spiritual evolution, but it's pretty obvious as waste products of technological evolution. If you think of energy production, I mean, fossil fuels. I just mentioned fossil fuels, right? What are we doing with them? We're burning them. Burning involves combustion, involves a very, very dramatic increase of entropy. We're creating pollution, we're warming up the atmosphere, we're leaving behind a lot of shit. And shit, I know that's not a nice word, but think of high entropy stuff as shit. I mean, we're creating more and more shit, basically. Pollution is shit. And the stuff that comes out of our butts is shit after we eat. So, you start with low entropy nourishment, which you put through your body, and you use it to do useful things for yourself. But then you take a shit, and the shit goes down the toilet. And, the shit is a high entropy waste that's left behind. And, there's a lot of, you want to think of shit metaphorically, there's a lot of other shit. There's pollution. Pollution is shit. And that's kind of the waste product of technological evolution. And we have to make sure that we dispose of it properly, right? Just like when you take a shit in the bathroom, you flush it down the toilet, and that's a good thing for toilets. There was a time when we didn't have toilets, and we had to deal with a lot more shit. But in the same way, all the waste products of energy production, particularly fossil fuel production, that's very dangerous shit. I mean, that shit's just warming up the atmosphere. That's shit that's gonna cause the polar ice to melt in a few years if we're not careful. So we have to be careful about that shit. We have to dispose of it properly. And I think pollution is a little bit easier, example. I mean, we used to dump toxic waste into rivers. I think we still do, not as much as we used to, but we almost destroyed Lake Erie in the 60s and 70s because of all the big industry and the Rust Belt, in Cleveland and Detroit. The Cuyahoga River caught fire twice in the 60s because of all the waste in it. That was very dramatic pollution we were leaving behind. There was a lot of high entropy shit as a result of technology. I think now we're dealing with pollution better than we used to, at least certain types of pollution. But pollution, just keep that in mind. Pollution is a high energy waste product. Every kind of pollution, um, radioactive waste from nuclear plants is a pretty bad form of pollution, and we still haven't figured out a good way to dispose of it yet. But what about like spiritual evolution? I mean, I haven't talked about that yet. Maybe that's where good and evil come in. Like I said, good is that which proceeds in the direction of all three of these forms of evolution. Evil is what proceeds in the opposite direction. So, I mean, is there a waste product of spiritual evolution? I think there is, and I think it's evil. I think, I mean, think about it. Newton's law, Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. So yeah, we can develop some really great ideas that help our society, like freedom or peace or ending racism or But then there's gonna people who resist those changes. They're kind of the evil people. They're the ones who prefer the way things were in the past. Maybe they like it when women didn't have rights, or when black people were slaves. Those people, they're the evil people. They're the ones who are defending the past, the things that didn't work. So I think they're kind of the waste products of spiritual evolution. I know that sounds kind of cruel, but I think they have two choices. Either they can change their mind and act towards good and do the right things, or else they can perish in whatever kind of wars or revolutions we're going to have in the future that's going to ultimately improve our society. So think about that. Don't be a waste product. Be good. I think I'll leave it, oh, there's a few other things I wanted to show. The heat death of the universe. I don't know what to make of this. It's not going to happen for a Google years, so I'm not too worried about it. But I did say that entropy is increasing, and that's a law of physics. So I guess what that means is in maybe in a Google years, which is an unimaginably long time from now. Because now we know not only is the universe expanding, as shown on the right, but the rate of its expansion is accelerating. Uh, so what that's going to mean is that, first of all, in about you don't even have to wait a Google years. In about 10 billion years, the only thing that's going to be visible from the Milky Way, if there's still life there, is going to be the Milky Way and the local galaxies near it, about 20 galaxies. Because everything else is going to be moved beyond the observable universe. So whoever exists then, they might think that the entire universe just consists of the Milky Way and the 20 galaxies near it, which I think is kind of sad. And the other thing that's even sadder is that, eventually, according to this theory, I don't know if it's true or not, but most cosmologists seem to believe this. Eventually, in about a Google years, there's going to be nothing interesting left in the entire universe. Will just be a expanding kind of primordial soup of some low energy photons. And life won't be able to exist in that environment. There'll be nothing of interest anymore. That's pretty depressing to me. I don't like to think that, even if it is a Google years from now. Basically, what that theory is saying is that evil's gonna win because I don't know if that's true. I mean, there's probably a lot of things we don't know yet about science. I don't like to believe that, but at least for now. I mean, if you want to be optimistic, think about what I said about good and evil. Think about, spiritual evolution. Try to be spiritually evolved. Try to come up with some good ideas that can help humanity, help yourself, and help others. And I think if we do that, I think, people in general are good. I think the testimony to the fact that people in general are good is the fact that human society has progressed. And I think it has progressed. A lot of people don't seem to think that, but there's another really excellent book I read a few years ago. Yeah, Hard Work Pays Off. That's just, I think these are the last two slides I have. Work hard, dream big. I like this one even better. We can be motivated to work hard if we kind of know what our purpose in life is. If we hold on to our dreams, if we do what we were put here to do by God, I think. I kind of know why I'm here. I'm here to teach math. I'm starting a math school, and I think God wants me to do it, and I want to do it. And God really wants us to do what we want to do ourselves. We just have to figure out what that is. But whatever we decide to do, we have to work to achieve it. It's not going to just happen on its own. So anyway, work hard, dream big. I think I'll end with that. And be optimistic because the world has improved. Um, I wouldn't want to live just about any time in the past. Certainly not anywhere more than about 50 years ago. And I think the world is a better place, even though a lot of things are pretty shitty right now. I'm not going to get into what they are, but I think we all kind of know that. But, be hopeful. There's always hope. And do the right things. Because if you do the right things, you're going to make the world a better place. So I'll just end with that. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see. Oh, and by the way, I want to give a plug for my book. I don't think anybody's buying this book right now. I don't know why, but this is a book I wrote last year. It's called My Spiritual Journey. It's available on Amazon. Just go to Amazon.com. Type Dave Tom, My Spiritual Journey by Dave Thomas Rocker. It's I think it's on discount now. You can buy it for like $13, and I think you'll enjoy it. I mean, it's a lot of quotes. It's a short book. It's only about 100 pages, but it has a lot of quotes I came up with over a period of about a year in 2022. That was kind of the year I went on my spiritual journey. And, you know, I have a lot of good quotes in there, and I also have a lot of, I think, good ideas. You might not agree with all of them, but I think it's worth a read. So check it out. Anyway, that's my video for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.